My own son, David, tried to ruin me. He used my love and my money to start a wicked scam he called the Fake Happiness Course. He thought he could steal from sad people and then call me too old and crazy to stop him. He thought his lie was safe. He didn't know that his own mother was a retired mind doctor, and I was about to use my superpower to make him confess his entire crime on a secret recorder. I was about to save my community, even if it meant destroying my own son. My name is Sylvia. Before we start this big truth test, tell me quickly in the comments where you are watching from. And if you believe that experience always defeats arrogance, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss the final lesson. I was a doctor, a mind doctor. That means I spent my whole life learning how people think, what they hide, and how to find the simple, real truths inside their heads. That was my superpower, and it was the only thing that saved me when my son, David, broke my heart. David came to me with a big, shiny idea for his course. He needed a lot of money to start his scam, and he came to me. Because I loved him so much, I gave him the money. It was almost everything I had saved for my quiet retirement. I trusted him completely. At first, David pretended everything was wonderful, but I started watching him. I saw his car get bigger and his house get fancier. I saw that he never looked happy, even when he was selling his fake happiness course to people who needed real help. He was greedy and he was lying. When I finally confronted him, I showed him the numbers and told him, "David, this is wrong. You are stealing from people who are sad." David didn't feel shame. He just got angry. He looked at me, his face cold, and he said the cruelest thing. "Mom, you are too old now. You forgot everything." That was the moment the mother in me went quiet and the mind doctor took over. He didn't realize that when a mind doctor is insulted, she doesn't call a regular police officer. She builds a truth test. The mind game had begun. David's insult, calling me too old and crazy, made my plan very simple. I couldn't hire a lawyer because David would lie and spend all his stolen money fighting me. My only weapon was my mind trading, my years of experience making troubled people tell the truth. My mission was to make David confess the whole fake happiness course scam on a hidden recorder. I called this my truth recorder. The confession had to sound completely normal, like a simple talk between mother and son. If David heard even one strange question, he would find the recorder and ruin me forever. I went to the store and bought a small, very good recorder. Then I prepared my quiet living room. It was the perfect place. It felt safe and cozy, like a place where secrets are shared, but it was about to become the stage for the biggest truth test of my life. I knew exactly what I needed David to say. I needed him to admit two simple things. The course is fake, that he knew the secrets he sold were useless. The money is stolen, that he took the money without earning it. I practiced the talking tricks I used in my old doctor office. These tricks were simple. Nodding slowly, using very soft words, and asking questions that made David feel safe enough to boast about his clever scam. The most important task was hiding the truth recorder. I settled on my big, leafy houseplant in the corner. The plant was near the sofa so it would hear everything, and David would never look there. I carefully tucked the recorder deep inside the leaves and pressed the small button. I was scared, but the thought of all the sad people David was stealing from gave me the strength to continue. The stage was set for the first truth test. I had the plan, and the truth recorder was safely hidden in the leafy green plant. Now, I needed to get David to come to the house without him knowing why. I called David. I used a soft, sad voice and told him I wanted to talk about his father, my late husband, and how much I missed him. It was a subtle excuse, a way to make David feel comfortable and like this was just a simple family visit. David agreed quickly. He didn't want to talk about his father, but he wanted to make sure I wasn't going to call the police. His greed made him careless. He thought, "My old mother just needs comfort. I'll humor her." Before he arrived, I did a final check of the living room. I set out his favorite cookies and made the room feel extra warm and cozy. Everything had to feel normal. As I waited, I practiced my questions one last time. I had to start the conversation far away from the fake happiness course scam. I decided to talk about his childhood, about the first time he got in trouble at school. This trick, I knew, makes people drop their strong walls and start talking honestly. David arrived, loud and arrogant. He gave me a quick hug and started complaining about the traffic. I led him straight to the sofa, right next to the leafy plant with the truth recorder, silently listening. I used a simple signal, pretending to adjust the pillows to make sure the recorder was on. The recording light blinked a small, silent green. The truth test had begun, and David had no idea that his words were about to become the proof of his crime. The truth test began slowly. David was impatient, wanting to leave quickly. I spoke softly about his father, asking simple, gentle questions about memories. This made him relax. Then I gently moved the topic to his fake happiness course. I didn't accuse him. I used a doctor trick. I acted like I was confused and wanted to help him. "David," I said, leaning in, "tell me about this happiness course. It sounds so clever. It must be easy to sell something so simple. How do you manage to do it?" This worked perfectly. David, feeling safe and wanting to boast, started talking confidently. He bragged about how easy it was to sell the course secrets to people who were desperate. He admitted the secrets were simple things anyone knew, but he made them sound special. I pushed deeper, but softly. "But David, doesn't it bother you that people spend so much money on things they already know?" He shrugged, leaning back on the sofa. He gave the first piece of the confession. "Mom, they're not smart enough to know the difference. The money is just easy." I kept my face kind and calm, but inside, I felt sick. He admitted he was taking money from people who weren't smart enough to stop him. It was a small confession, but it was proof. David got uncomfortable soon after and started complaining about his partners. He stood up, ready to leave. I made a mental note of the exact time on the recorder. The first truth test was successful. I had undeniable proof that David knew the course was fake and that he saw his customers as easy targets. I had the first recording, but I needed more. The police needed proof that David was not just selling a useless course, but that he was hurting people and stealing a lot of money. I called David 2 days later. This time, I said I was worried about the sadness of his customers. I said I was worried about the people who weren't getting real help. When David arrived, I started the truth recorder again. I used my special trick to bring the talk back to the serious topic. I asked him if any of his customers had told him they were still sad after buying his course. David got very uncomfortable. He yelled about how his customers were not my problem and tried to change the subject, complaining about too much work and his partners. I stayed calm. I asked him a simple question. "David, if someone breaks their leg, do you give them a Band-Aid?" "No, you give them a real doctor. If someone is truly sad, are you giving them the real help they need?" He became quiet. Then he broke down a little bit, admitting his deepest fear. "The course is useless for people who are actually depressed. It could be dangerous for them." That was the bigger confession. He admitted the course was useless and potentially dangerous. This proved his scam was not just stealing money. It was about hurting sick people. The mind doctor had won this round. If you are enjoying this story and want to see how the final trap is sprung, please like this video now and subscribe to the channel. It helps us tell more stories of clever revenge.
I knew I had enough proof to start the next big part of the plan, sending the recordings to the big police. I still needed the final confession about the stolen money. I had saved the most dangerous questions for the last time. I knew the big police would need David to say exactly how much money he took. I had to set up one final short meeting with David to get him to say those two important things. I stole the money, and the course is a lie. I was ready to bring the whole scam down. I knew the final truth test would be the hardest, and I would need all my mind doctor strength to get the confession without breaking my heart completely. I knew I couldn't call the regular police. I needed the big police, the ones who handle big money crimes. I called my friend, the Good Helper, who used to work for the government. I told him I had recordings of a financial crime, and I needed help sending them anonymously to the right place. The Good Helper was shocked by the recordings, but he agreed to help me. He sent the recordings to the big police, the agency that handles money crimes. The big police sent a quiet signal back to the Good Helper. We need more. We need specific proof of stealing a lot of money. The clock was ticking. David was still running his scam and stealing more money every day. I knew I needed one final meeting, the most dangerous one, to get David to confess how much money he stole. I called David. I sounded scared. I told him the bank had called me asking strange questions about the big money I gave him. I knew this would make him panic. I told him he needed to come to my house now to fix the problem. David arrived sweating and angry. He was suspicious. He asked me, "Mom, is anyone else here?" I smiled and said, "No, David, it's just us. Come sit by the plant." He had no idea that the silent leaves were holding the truth recorder that was about to take everything from him. The stage was set for the final, biggest confession.
The final talk happened in my quiet living room. David was nervous, checking his phone and looking around. I started the truth recorder just as he sat down. I didn't talk about the big police. I switched my tactics completely. I started talking about his childhood, about how much his father believed in him. I used a special technique, the memory trick, to make him feel safe and loved, just like when he was little. This trick worked powerfully. David's strong walls came down. He started confessing his deep sadness and resentment. He talked about how much he hated his job and how he felt like a failure. Then the dangerous part started. He began to boast. He bragged about how clever he was to trick the bank and how much money he was about to get. I knew this was my only chance. I used the final trick, the simple question. I asked him, "David, why did you have to steal all that money from those sad people? Did you really take all of it?" David, feeling emotionally safe but also pressured to prove his cleverness, paused. He took a deep breath and the words tumbled out loud and clear onto the truth recorder. The moment of truth arrived. David blurted out the words I needed. "Yes, I took all the money, every single penny, and the course is garbage." He paused, then added, "It was so easy, Mom. They believe anything." I sat quietly for a long moment, letting his words sink in and letting the truth recorder capture the devastating admission. Then I quickly ended the recording. The psychological trap had closed perfectly. I felt an immense sadness, but knew I had saved countless people. I stood up. David, realizing he had said too much, looked confused. I walked over to the leafy houseplant, reached inside, and pulled out the small recorder. David looked at the plant, then at the recorder, then at me. His face went white. He knew immediately that he was ruined. He lunged for the recorder, yelling and cursing. I held it tightly. He realized the quiet old mother he dismissed was smarter, calmer, and much stronger than he could ever be. I had the proof of his crime. David was gone.
running out the door after realizing the police would be soon after him. I was left alone with the recording and a broken heart. I took the recorder to the good helper, who immediately gave the final confession to the big police. This scam was shut down immediately. David lost his fake happiness course business and his bank accounts were frozen. The police started tracking him down. The entire scheme, built on lies and arrogance, collapsed because of this simple truth, captured by a hidden recorder. David eventually called me, not to apologize, but to yell and blame me for everything. He called me a traitor. I simply told him, "David, I didn't ruin you. You ruined yourself when you decided to steal from people who needed help." He lost everything, his money, his business, and his freedom. I didn't feel triumph. I felt a deep, cold sadness of a mother who had to destroy her own son to save her community and her own ethical code. I saved countless people, but I lost my child. 1 year later, the chaos was over. David was facing the consequences of his crime. I spent my time working with the police to help the victims get their money back. I sat in my quiet living room, looking at the sofa and the leafy houseplant. The room was peaceful again. I had secured my retirement and saved my community. I realized the crucial victory. My mind was not broken, and my training was the ultimate power. I listened to the recording one last time, hearing David's arrogant voice and the final crushing confession. Then I destroyed the truth recorder completely. The evidence had served its purpose. I looked back at the incident and realized the greatest lesson. David thought I was just a sweet old mother. He never saw the mind doctor who knew how to find the simple hidden truth. I protected my community, my ethics, and proved that a mind trained to find the truth is the strongest weapon of all. Never too old to give the final, necessary lesson.